Okay, we are live. Mr. Ben Smith, uh, really appreciate you being here. We'll start with that. Ben Smith is, I know you're going to hate and like cringe at any of these words, so I'll be careful. I know you don't like the term light worker. I know you don't like the term guru, anything like that, but he's the man who I have learned how to meditate from. I am in his school. It's called the Inner Journey School. Just came across you from the good old YouTube algorithm. I really love the way you carry yourself. In fact, the way that you don't want attention and you don't want to call yourself a guru and you don't. It's just very authentic to me, and so that's what attracted me to your school. And I've learned a lot about meditation, and I wanted to talk about spirit guides, and I thought, who better than you? So that's kind of why we're here, and I'm grateful that you're here, man.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to getting into it and yeah, see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, same. So I set the intent before this to just kind of let it go where it needs to go, right? I think I mean, my hope is that someone who sees this, maybe they've heard about spirit guides or they don't believe they have spirit guides, and this maybe pushes them one more notch in the right direction, right? One more step towards either seeing if they're out there, right? Trying some things for themselves, but that's my intent. That's my hope today.
Hmm.
Not necessarily to convince anyone that they're real, but just to maybe like see for yourself kind of thing, like check it out. Because I know it's helped me a lot, the concept of spirit guides and just yeah, you're not alone. You know that whole thing is actually very comforting when you believe it. It's one thing to intellectually understand it, but I think actually believing and knowing maybe is a better word that
Hmm.
they're real is pretty powerful. So to start things off, this just came to me this morning, but I was thinking about this. You know how you have some people when they talk about spirit guides or communicating with, you use the term divine, but you can call it spirit, universe, whatever,
Hmm.
God. You know how some people say you need to be careful what you channel in? Like they'll have a mantra or something they'll use, like please, spirit of the highest compassion and wisdom, please come through today. Like they're always talking about being very careful because you don't want to invite any riffraff, right? You don't want to invite anything negative, and that always confused me because I thought the other side was just love. And so I'm like,
Hmm.
that's a strange thought to me that you could invite, or I don't know, a trickster can come through, or an evil spirit. I don't know what you want to call that, but
Hmm.
do you know what I'm talking about? I don't know if there's a direct question in there, but that always confused me.
Yeah, for sure. I think the way I tried to look at it, and I suppose the way that it was shared with me, is that the other side, if we want to call it that, is similar in some ways to what we have here. In that there's a variety of people and a variety of souls with a variety of intentions,
Mm,
and yeah, there's many loving souls and everything on the other side. I would say, from my experience as well, does have its extremes. So I've had experiences actually, which I've not spoken about many times, but of demons, believe it or not, and only once actually. Of all, I've been doing it for quite a long time, and only at once have I ever had an interaction with a demon. But it was pretty terrifying.
mm.
And generally speaking, I've found that the other side tends to have those two extremes that seem to be more extreme than what we have here, at least in my experience of it. And so yeah, the loving souls, guides, spirit guides, angels, it doesn't matter really what people call them. I do believe in these beings, are much more perhaps advanced is the term to use than perhaps many people are here. Whether that's correct or not, it's difficult to know. But equally, I think that there are souls that are also this type of souls that would cause problems and difficulties on planet Earth that end up on the other side. So people being careful about who they're directing their guidance towards, or the connection that they're trying to form, being careful about forming that with the right entity, I suppose, is important.
Do you think your spirit guides are there to help block that sort of thing? Because if someone's down here and they're genuinely trying to connect to spirit, right? They're like, they've had a hard life or whatever the case may be, and they're like, you know what? I really want guidance. I want to connect. I want this oneness that everybody talks about. And then they try, and then they get connected with some crazy demon who sends them down a spiral. Like it's pretty messed up, in my opinion,
Mm.
you know. And then I don't know. That's a weird concept for me to maybe I'm not supposed to understand that, but it makes me feel then like hell and heaven are real, or like like what's going on the other side then? Is there like there's bad parts of the universe you can't go into, like there's bad parts of a city, you know what I mean? Like what's
Yeah,
going on there? I mean, it's very
yeah,
interesting. Okay.
yeah. I mean, through our through the law of attraction, I suppose is the mechanism that's involved. Through the law of attraction, if you're a soul that's helping people and putting out goodness, and you're trying to be a good person, it doesn't mean that you need to, be on a stage teaching thousands. But if you're just a good person, you're going to draw to yourself a nice area of the other side. However, if you're, let's say, just to keep things really, really simple, not such a good soul, you're not a soul, you're not a good soul down here. You don't help people. You do bad things. To keep it really, really simple, you're going to end up in an area of the astral plane that is like that. The astral plane has three levels, and the lower level is where what are considered the types of souls that maybe commit evil down here. They will naturally draw themselves to that area of the astral plane.
Okay. Isn't it also true though that technically there's like the spirit doesn't or divine doesn't see things as good or bad? It's
Yeah,
both necessary, right? I mean,
yeah. We use
just
good
like
or bad for purely for simplistic explanation of it, but it's all relative, really.
okay. Fascinating. Okay. Okay, let's talk specifically maybe more about spirit guys. I just had to come out the gates hot there with just this question was on my mind. But yeah, I guess for someone out there, Ben, who doesn't feel like they have that connection, what would what would be your first piece of advice to them? Let's say they don't do meditation. They're just very curious. They've been hearing about guides, spirit guides, angels, but they are, something in them is saying you need to look into this. What would you say to that person?
You've got something there that is to even be contemplating the idea. There's something within you that is perhaps leaning you or guiding you towards it. Whether you want to term it in that way, as in terms of connecting with spirit guides, it doesn't really matter what label you attach. There's something within you and something within all of us actually, whether it's exposed and obvious or whether it's not because we've dimmed it right down and become consumed in the outer world. There's something within you that is always going to be helping you, and that may at some points bring about these ideas. And you might see these ideas through a video like this, or a book, or a conversation with someone who's gone down that path. And these are little clues. I like to see them as little clues and little pointers. And it doesn't mean you have to go along with them, because we all have free will. We can do what you want. And if you feel like you're not ready, or you just don't believe in it, that's also fine. But if you do, and you have that inkling, and you think, okay, I want to try it for myself, I would say at that point, it's better to go all in and be fully committed, because it's easy to say I'm just going to try, and you just dip your toe in, but you're still very much consumed in disbelief and overthinking and worrying and all of these ideas. You're not in a way making room for this contact. I've found from how it works with me, which isn't necessarily how it works with everyone, but how it works with me is that I have to empty myself. I have to completely surrender, which basically means to make room for. I have to completely empty myself. So if I'm wanting guidance on something, but there's an aspect of me that is hoping that it ends up in this particular way so that I can see the outcome, I can see the future, I can see how things are going to pan out, I'm still trying to manipulate the guidance. And in that manipulation, I'm in a roundabout way saying, I don't trust you enough to fully give you my full surrender, but if you can assist me to make things look like this, that would be great. So there's not a full opening, and it's quite hard because you do have to fully surrender what you think to be right and how you want things to look. And even if you start getting guidance and things don't appear to be unraveling in a way that you would hope, you have to still go with that if you're fully open and fully surrendering, because even in that, what is you're perceiving often as being a negative outcome, there's learnings to be had, there's lessons to be drawn from it. Something will manifest from it that will be for your greater good. So I think a big part of it for people who are thinking about this or perhaps interested is commit fully. Try not to, that's a big thing to ask, but do commit fully.
It's hard.
If you want.
Hard. You're very self-aware, right? So it's like, it's even when you describing all that, I was like, oh, that's just your average person is not thinking like you. Like, well, if I'm asking this, then that's just hard. That's such a hard thing to commit fully, to be aware enough to that. Yeah.
Now they know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I found that the more I look into it, the more questions I have, you know?
Yeah, sometimes, that is how things unravel. And again, that is how we end up blocking ourselves. And we all do it, by the way. We all do it. Is we ask for guidance and then we say, but what if this doesn't come off? Or what if I just decided to go down this avenue that I'm already thinking of? And we create this worry and anxiety and analyze everything. And in all of that, we're not creating the room that is needed for the guidance to appear. We block ourselves. We get in our own way by all of the over-analyzing and overthinking. But it does require that trust, which is very difficult to just be open to and go with.
Yeah. Do you think there is any guidance too small to not get an answer? Like, you know how you come across a good professor and they say there's no dumb question. Do you think there is a limit on what someone could ask for guidance from, or do you think it really is like anything, everything, all day they are here to support you? Doesn't mean you're going to get an answer to everything, but do you think it's one of those things you could bring anything to them?
Yeah, I do, and I think start small. If you're contemplating big things that feel daunting and you don't want to make a mistake, you'll feel as though you're making a mistake, then start small. Start really small. And there are ways to do it, which we can chat about at some point.
Yeah, I would love to.
On this call, I'm sure. But yes, perhaps starting small is the way, and then it's easier to trust, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I feel, at least in my own life, and many people are this way. You have to. It's the same with spirituality. You have to experience it. That really is the only way. I was listening to an interview yesterday. I'm going to butcher the name, and I'll do this probably my entire life but Deepak Chopra. And he was just saying any religion, any spiritual practice, any guide, book, even thought process is not the way. It cannot show you the way. You have to experience it directly. I think that's confusing because so many people will get into spirituality or guides, right? And they'll have this process, but sometimes it's almost like the way in is not through process, and that's very hard for people to wrap their heads around. Does that make sense? Or no?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. It is very tricky. I remember it was explained to me once, and I think because the idea of belief feels blind and almost like stupid to some people, to have belief in something that you can't yet experience. My teacher said to me, belief is the bridge between two shores, not knowing and experiencing. The belief is the thing that is the link between those two. Everything that you do, you have to have belief in. And I remember I had this moment of clarity once where I thought it was actually after I'd got a taxi, and I just sat in the back of the taxi, barely even aware of where I was, just let him do all the driving. And I thought, I've surrendered more to this taxi driver than I'd be willing to surrender, or perhaps often surrender to, higher intelligence.
Wow, that's
just sat in the taxi without a second thought, just completely surrendered that and accepted and trusted that he would take me where I needed to go. If we all did that with higher guidance, that's the way to do it. Is you just step in. But if I was to get in the taxi and have one foot on the road and one foot in the car and say, okay, let's go, they're not going to guide us there. They're not going to take us there because we're not fully committed it's very much the same with this type of work. You have to be all in. You have to really go all in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same if like forgiveness, right? If you want to learn about forgiveness, it's not through the act of forgiving someone that you learn about it. It's by having something to forgive, and then you forget, right? That's the hard part. And that's the same
Yeah.
with belief, is kind of what you're talking about here.
Hmm.
Okay. Do you, I guess we'll talk into maybe some things I've done, and more would just be curious on your thoughts about it. It's kind of
Sure.
in the same vein of understanding or knowing or experiencing something, right, which helps on your journey. Because I definitely want to talk about that, right, starting simple and how that progresses. But for me, I created a language, at least started to, with my spirit guides. I learned it from a book. It's called Signs by Laura Lynn Jackson. It was just this concept of literally like how it sounds. But for me, like when I see a gold rose, if I see
Hmm.
that anywhere, that to me is a sign that I'm on the right track, right? It's not
Yeah.
always like a blanket yes or no, but it's like you're on the right track. So if I had a thought prior to that, or I've really been contemplating something in my life, or there's a big decision I've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks, if I see that gold rose, it's like, hey, you're on the right track if I'm leaning towards a certain way. Or vice versa, if I see like a jack of spades, that means
Hmm.
warning, right? That means like you need to pay attention here. Like that's maybe not the right way. Do you like that concept? Do you think that's the right way to go about it? Like creating these little symbols or signs that your spirit guides can use to let you know they hear you. What are your thoughts on that?
I like it. I like it in most cases. I do like it in most cases. I think you've always there's always this fine balance with this work in that in some areas of it you need to embrace completely and let go of thinking, but in other areas it is useful at all times to have a level of discernment and be careful because there
Mm-hmm.
are, it's easy to fall into total delusion about things. So we do have to be careful. But I do like the idea of, and have definitely experienced and noticed many ways for many different people actually, how their guides will assist them through these different things. So I personally see rainbows, not not in the sky necessarily, but when you just see a rainbow strip on the floor,
Mm-hmm.
that is, I always see that. Well, to begin with, I started seeing that in very profound moments. When I was going to see a spiritual teacher, or I was doing some meditation practice, or I was doing something that was different or spiritually aligned, I would see a rainbow on the floor or
Wow.
somewhere. And that pattern has continued, and it's very much in line with when things are either going well or I'm doing something, or there's a moment where I'm changing or shifting. So for me, it's that. My dad had a different experience. He would see magpies. So he had a phase where he was going to job interviews, and he'd just, before that, leading up to that, he would see a few magpies, and he said he went to one job interview, and he got to the job, and there was like 20 magpies outside
Wow.
in the car park. Loads of other things had led up to this moment, but he had that as his form of guidance. So yeah, I do think that these are ways that our guides show us in a more tangible way that, yeah, I'm with you, you're doing the right thing. I would keep it as simple as that and wouldn't look
Okay.
into it too much. At least that's my approach, because then we overanalyze again and we
Mm-hmm.
add too much mind. I just see it as a gentle push or a gentle reminder.
Okay,
But for
that's good
sure,
advice.
for sure.
All right, let's talk about maybe one even a small practice, something that someone could do, whether it be today, tonight, a beginner, right? And they could start building that trust that they are being guided. What would that be?
Make silence your best friend. Silence is where you'll find the guidance that you need. So you have to take yourself somewhere that's quiet. You have to be in silence. You have to be away. You don't have to be away from people, but it's better if you're away from people. So in a moment where I need guidance, for example, I will take myself off into my spare room or somewhere out of the way, and I'll sit down, sometimes in a meditation, sometimes just sit down, and I'll quieten everything. So I'll slow my breathing, I'll quieten my whole body, and I will simply I keep everything that I do as simple. as simple as I can, and I'll simply ask in my mind, and I talk in my mind with a knowing that it's being heard, not an if or a but, a knowing. I know this is being received, and I'll simply ask. But when I ask, and this is really important, I don't ask adding on how I want things to look or the outcome that I think is best. I don't try to manipulate the guidance to look how I want it to be. As I mentioned at the start, if I'm asking for guidance, I'm giving the reins over to something, and the outcome will be what's right. So that is important. And I think keeping things as simple as just doing it that way. So if someone's listening to this now and they're saying, okay, nice video, yeah, I'm interested in spirit guides and getting some guidance, take yourself away to a room, sit down quietly, calm yourself down, and just inwardly talk as if you were talking to whatever that guidance may look like. You don't need to formulate an image. It could just be a light if you do want to, but if not, just keep it empty and just cast these questions out with a knowing that they're being received. And as I said there, without trying to manipulate how you want things to look. That's the key.
Would you also say it's key to not not force how the feedback is given, how the response is, whether it be like, I want to see a light or I want to see a sign? Like, do you think it should be very open? Because some people receive guidance in different ways. Some people are very literally hear a voice. I think some people feel in their gut, right? Like there's just different ways that you can receive. And I think if you're a beginner and you're just exploring, you don't know what the best way to receive is yet, at least for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because then you're again trying to manipulate how the guidance comes, and how do you know that that's the right way that you need to receive it, or when you need to receive it. Sometimes you don't get the guidance until later on, and actually when you do get it, it's a more appropriate time to receive it than when you initially asked. So it's very complex. It can be complex.
Yeah. I guess I worry about someone hearing this and then trying it, right? And then nothing happens. And then they're like, well, see, this doesn't work. I knew it. You know, like I almost want to give them like a time frame, like got to give this time, or maybe not expect a literal response. I don't know, because when you do get to that knowing, like you're talking about, even the way you ask, you know that it's being heard. When you know that you have guides, it is powerful. I mean, it can change your life, your whole life. So I just encourage, and I hope people don't just like try this once, maybe hearing this and like, all right, this doesn't work because you didn't feel anything right away, or you didn't, nothing happened.
Yeah. And I mean, I've heard people talk similar things as well. You know, I've tried doing that before. I've never heard anything. I don't get any guidance. It's understandable, because I think we expect to hear things in a way that we're used to perceiving information and perceiving insights, but it is not likely to come in that way. It will come in a completely different way. And it all, when you do narrow down why things aren't happening, it usually comes to the very root of the reason why is trust. Almost always, trust and surrender is almost always at the very root of it. You know, it's people are asking, filled with doubt and filled with, concern, or, I suppose just doubt that it's not going to happen. A lot of that is the reason, which is difficult. You do need.
You mean they're going into it with doubt, which is why they're not, nothing's happening. Like they're already blocking the process.
Yeah, it's having absolute complete trust that it's gonna work. The guidance is there, and that it's not because you've done something wrong. I hear people say, "Oh, you know, it must be because this chakra's blocked," or, you know, my energy's not at a certain frequency yet. You're creating a block with that thought, with that type of thinking immediately. Anyone can do this. Anyone can connect. The way it's received, the way it comes, will be different, but you do have to trust and surrender fully. And I would suggest writing down as well. You know, if you're if it's not quite working or you feel as though you're not receiving what you need, write down and write down how you asked, write down how you felt when you asked. Where were you? Write it down and get more clarity and see what were your like thoughts around that time. What was the sort of trail of thought that you were having? So you can see more clearly where you might have not been fully open.
That's good advice. Yeah, just being aware, right, and how you're asking.
Be completely aware. Yeah, it does take practice. All of this takes practice. It's
Yeah.
like we'll go into the taxi thing. In that instance, I got in without thinking. But if you go to a totally new country, often you're a bit more wary, aren't you? Or how much are they going to charge me? Is he going to run me around circles on an estate and then take me to the destination? So the trust is diluted, and that's okay because you kind of need proof. But to some extent, you need to just at some point you need to step in and fully let go.
Yeah. You've mentioned in one of your videos about spirit guides that people often wait for a voice in their head and they miss these practical signs. What do you think is the most common sign that people are probably overlooking?
That's a great question. The most common sign people are overlooking, I think a knowing, a deep gut felt knowing, they then add on all their own thoughts and thinking onto what is already there and shroud it or dilute it or hide it and analyze it, because also the guidance that we receive might not be what we want.
A lot of times, probably, right?
A lot of
A lot of
times.
times, yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it with people who are having questions over their relationship. And even from the outside, I've had a knowing of what they needed to do. And they've sort of expressed that they've also had a knowing, but then they've not acted on it. And they've added all of this mental analysing on top of it and confused the whole situation, which is, again, kind of understandable in that it's a big decision and you don't necessarily just want to sit down and make a rash decision. But I think it is, a lot of it is, again, it just comes back to that practice and trust, surrender,
Silence. Like sitting in there.
silence, get out of the mind, which takes practice.
Yeah. Do you have you ever experienced like different tones of guidance? Like, has it ever been more like intense for you? Like, hey, like more of a maybe not a reprimand, but has that ever happened, or is it always pretty in the way you get your messages, pretty even keel?
Yeah, there's definitely times when I'll get guidance that's more stern, definitely.
Okay.
And it's more, if I get guidance that's more stern, it comes quicker. It's normally when there's more danger involved or potential danger. I had one
Like
the
physical
other day.
danger.
Yeah, I had one not so long ago actually, where I just was in a shop, and some guy walked into the shop, and I just had this sense of danger, just out of nowhere, just a deep, intuited knowing that I needed to keep my distance. And it wasn't like they were dressed in a particular way that sort of, may make you feel like that. But I just got a real sense of, I need to keep a bit of a distance from this person.
Wow.
That came on more. That was a firmer form of knowing, a different type of knowing. It's hard to articulate. But then I have other knowings. So, for example, when we bought this place here, we've been here for about 8 months or something. And when I walked into the flat that we're in, I knew it was going to be ours. And I kept telling the estate agent, I kept saying our house. I kept referring to it as being ours. And we were just on our first viewing. I just knew it was going to be ours. It just was there. I could have took the keys off of there, and then I was that sure.
Yeah, that's cool.
It was, yeah, it was
I
really
love it.
strange.
Yeah. Well, Ben, I want to be very respectful of your time. I do feel like we actually covered some pretty good stuff here today. yeah, I guess one final parting. If there's anything you would like to leave to anyone out there watching this, and I think if they do come across this video, they're probably a little bit along their journey, right? And so,
Mhm.
curious about spirit guides, curious about communication with the divine. Is there anything else you'd like to I guess leave them with?
It's there for everyone. There's no one that's better or worse or less able or more able. If you're more able, it's more because you're more receptive or more open, but that's a feature that anyone can kind of develop within themselves. So everyone's on an even keel in that regard. The all of the answers that we all want, and as cliche as it sounds, they are accessible within us. But until we turn inward and actually seek advice from an inner source, we won't, we'll never be able to tap into it. So it's having that understanding that there is an inner source of information that is accessible and available to all of us. It's there. If you need help through means like meditation and things, that can help because it quietens a lot of the noise. You're able to hear a bit clearer. But I think I was always taught by my teacher that we have our own inner guru. We look for external gurus, but any good external guru will point you towards the inner guru anyway, because the inner guru is the true part of you that will give you exactly what you need, specifically what you need and when you need it. Become acquainted with that inner guru, become good friends with that inner guru, because it's the thing that's with you all times, 24 hours a day. And as good as your friends might be, and as good as your partner might be, if you have a partner, that inner guru is your best, closest, and most understanding and knowledgeable friend that you've got. Become good friends with that guru. You never feel alone when you have. You'll feel like you have a companion all the time. So that would
Yeah,
be my advice.
that's beautiful advice. Is that what people refer to as their higher self? Would you say
It can
that's
be.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing? Well, for anyone listening, Mr. Ben has a YouTube channel. It's called Ben Smith Real. He also has a school. It's the Inner Journey School. I will link everything down below, so it's all in the notes here. But again, I really appreciate you being here, man. It means a lot to
Yeah,
me,
it's
and
great to chat.
yeah, it was a good conversation. I hope someone out there maybe takes one more step in that direction. So
For
thank you,
sure.
Ben. Appreciate you,
You're
man.
welcome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, cheers.